Hello there, welcome to the Literary Gladiators channel. I'm Josh.
And I'm Tori.
And today we're going to be talking about a particular play. The particular play being Mlima's Tale by Lynn Nottage. Tori and I did some buddy reading of a few plays and thought we would talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, this one was a really good read. That one was very compelling.
Yeah, I don't know so much on my end. I think that there were particular points that were brought across in this book. To me, as a brief summary, Mlima's Tale has to do with a particular elephant in Africa that gets poached, and the way that this elephant is portrayed in most of the piece is by its tusks, and the entire background as far as humanity is concerned is through the chain of command. It starts with the poachers.
The journey of those tusks from how they're first obtained all the way to where they end up by the final buyer.
Yes, it goes to their supervisors, wardens, the people that are shipping them out.
And how it's like smuggled out of the country, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So it kind of is, it shines a light on that process, which is unfortunate that that's still something that is a common occurrence nowadays. Mm-hmm. And also the one other piece is that the tusks are played by an actor who is throughout the entire play kind of just always present.
Yes, and in this, as per the program, it is suggested that the one that plays Mlima only plays Mlima.
Yeah, and I liked that fact because they're the central person, they're the central character, and also it kind of adds that weightiness of it doesn't matter because there are so many faceless individuals that are involved with that exchange. Those tusks have a specific identity. That character Mlima has a specific identity. And the way that they're portrayed also I thought was very interesting too.
Mm-hmm. I think that the concepts were interesting. I think that perhaps it would have been better to actually see it physically. I know that there's some that are able to shine on the page just as much as it is on the stage. But in this case, I have yet to see it on the stage. But,
yeah, I haven't seen it, but it is something that I can visualize, and there are certain scenes in there that are just chilling to read, because to mentally visualize seeing that in front of you is just, there's a lot of weighty points and a lot of, they use silence a lot in the play that I think is very, very good as well. They use a lot of sometimes things that aren't said, like visual cues, he's covered in white chalk paint. And he gets more and more paint on him as he goes throughout the play. And every single person that interacts with Mlima or with the tusks gets a handprint on him. Remember?
I remember that part.
Yeah. So and I just love that concept of you're branded. Mm. You did something bad and it has branded you.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was as effective in my mind.
You can't visualize that? Just the image of the two people having a conversation and it seems commonplace, and just this ghost of an individual in the back, just always there and always present. Just that is such a chilling thought process of that imagery is superb. And I thought that was pretty well conveyed in the play as well.
Possibly upon it being acted out, but personally, I was looking at the particular human characters, and to me, it seemed like a game of questions only from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Where
and it's
you only get a little bit of, you get one, and then you get the other, and then
that's the whole point. The whole point is body after body after body is the exchange of the thing. Mlima is the really important thing. Everything else is kind of you're seeing all these glimpses, because you're seeing it through the lens of Mlima. And
yet I felt Mlima was a little bit watery as well as a character. I think that Mlima is saying these things, but I didn't feel that he was as effective in my mind. I think. How so? I think that in a way he could have been. I think there could have been a bit more of a dramatic use of language and dialogue. I know that he refers to members of his family and others that were affected, but nothing that really gets under the skin in any which
I
way.
think that like I said, there's a lot of like what is not said with the character just being present without being like having to say stuff. I think there's a lot of good usage of space and of having things kind of nebulous around the edges gives that weightiness and the ability to like I'm only visualizing it, but visualizing how this would potentially how I would stage it if I was the director, how I would want to see it in the space that I know for like a small intimate setting like that, because this is one of those like it has to be a small space, it has to be an intimate space, lots of high contrast of like varying limited spaces. Like I know I'm using this word space, I'll stop using the word space now, but like I think it did a very, very good job with getting the point across. Because it personified something that otherwise would just be it's an item, it's an object. So by putting a face to it, by putting a body to it, I think it did the job.
I think that I felt a sense of more. I felt there was more of an effective answer regarding the Ivory issue in an article that I read called Tracking Ivory, which was written by Brian Christie, and it was featured in the Best American Science and Nature Writing from 2016. I think I got more out of what happens with poachers in Africa and the how undercover services are putting in these decoys.
Yeah, I think this is not supposed to go in depth. I think this play was supposed to kind of shed a light on that kind of stuff, and the main point was like the water, the pebble down the river of like what it kind of takes. So it was kind of like an introduction to like the stupid white map, not stupid white, but like uninformed. So this was supposed to be like a taste of that. I don't think it was supposed to educate in the way that like an article like that could educate. This was definitely supposed. It's artistic. It's a play. So I think it's going to be a little more on the dramatic side. So it's not going to go in depth in certain places. But at the end of the day, I believe that it did a very good job with what and how it tackles the concept of that, because I think it did a very good job with how. I think that
would have been. I think that this would have benefited. I think that this would have benefited from being a little bit longer. I think that, for instance, there was a reporter named Patience, and the characters prior were very uneasy about the fact that she was going to give him a hard time at the press conference, and she has one line in the whole thing, just to make herself known. It would have been interesting, maybe a few more lines to make the situation a bit more uneasy. There was an interesting... I thought that you had another interesting character, Alice. She's the one that ultimately buys the tusks, and she buys them as a purchase, very much like in Semplica Girl Diaries, when you instantly...
yeah, they were interesting characters.
Yeah, once you pick up a fortune, you
she was new money,
spend it on something.
Show it off.
Yeah, spend it on something frivolous like that. And
like I said, I think these weren't. Could it be longer? I think yes. And could it do more if it was longer? Yes. But I think then it would be bogged down in like tinier little other bits. I think what it did with what it had was, I think, effective. I think it was supposed to be these snapshots of the kind of generic, like, this is what happens, and this is what happens frequently, and it's not just this one example. It's unfortunate. Like, this one is the biggest prize. You know, Mlima's tusks was, they were, like, impressive, but, I can't really see it going anywhere else. Like, I cried when I read this. Like, it was that touching. So it is short. I wish it was a little bit longer, because I think they could have done a little bit more with it, but I think what the author did with what they had was masterful. I think it did, for a shortened amount of time, it's impactful with what it has. It packs a punch.
And how would you rate it? 0 to 5? Half stars permitted?
4.5, because I think it could be a little bit longer.
I'd give it 2.5. I just
wow.
Think that,
You are harsh today, man. You are harsh.
Just a bit, to me, it was watery and ineffective.
Interesting.
I think that there could have been, I mean, even if the central area of concentration was Mlima, I still think that a greater emphasis on the human characters would have been helpful. I think that Mlima could have been...
You would lose the point.
Yeah.
You would
Mlima
lose the point if you focused on the people. The people don't matter.
But Mlima would have also... Mlima really didn't seem to me to have the presence that he should have had. I think that maybe watching it would have been more effective, but I think that as a written piece, to me, I've read written pieces like the one I mentioned about tracking ivory that were more effective on the issue.
Yeah. I could visualize a lot of it, so I think that's why it hit me more profoundly. I don't know. I could see those scenes, and I can see, like, I could mentally stage it in my head, and I think that the author did a good job setting that up, so that way it had the ability to be visualized. It's an easy enough play to put on because it's so minimalist. And I like that. And I like when plays kind of play with, like, objects that are people. Like, they get a little abstract with that. So I really liked that, too.
I will say that despite my rating, it will be... I would consider watching it be performed. And I do want to read more from Nottage. She also wrote Intimate Apparel, Sweat, and several others. So, thank you for tuning in to our little discussion and debate of Mlima's Tale by Lynn Nottage. You can find this on Dramatist's Play Service's website. And thank you for tuning in. For now, keep reading.